Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our commander deck profile from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. We have Ojer Kaslem, Deepest Growth. For 5 mana, you get a 6/5 with Trample, where whenever he deals combat damage to a player, which will be pretty easy being a 6/5 with Trample, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield, or you put a land, but you're going to tend to get your big creatures off the top of your deck and into the battlefield so that they can start dealing damage to your opponents. He does also have the ability to transform into a land. That ability you don't really care about too much because we'll just put him back in the command zone so we can get that ability again. So we can make sure we get more and more powerful creatures. But that's the general gist of the deck, is that we want to have as many big creatures as possible on the board and plenty of ways to power up those creatures in order to make sure that they could deal big damage to our opponent. We have some ways to give them trample on top of that, ways to benefit off of, even when they do get removed, we could still get some benefits. Like I said, double power, trample, all of the above in order to make sure you deal some big damage. But that's the general overview of the deck, and let's get into it card by card. To start off, we have Arcane. Oh, we don't have Arcane Signet in this one, because we have plenty, we're in green. We have plenty of ways to get lands rather than needing Arcane Signet for this one. We have Emerald Medallion for a little bit of cost reduction, though. Still always nice to see. Lightning Grease and Swiftfoot Boots. We want to make sure Ojer can attack the turn he comes down, because we want to make sure we start getting big creatures right away. We don't want to wait until our opponent has a way to remove it. So we run both these to give him the haste. Great Henge. His spells cost X less to cast, where X is greatest power among creatures you control. It's going to be at least 6, so there'll be 3 mana, get a 2 mana rock, which will also gain you a little bit of life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So not only will this ability get us a free creature on the board, potentially a 12/12, but it'll also get us that 12/12 into a 13/13 and a little bit of draw power on top of that. Skullspore Nexus. X lets to cast, where X is greatest power among creatures you control. Once again, that could be 6, so it could just be a 2 mana spell that whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, create a fungus dinosaur with base power and toughness equal to total power of those creatures. So it could potentially just be a 6/6 if Ojer gets removed. But it could potentially be, oh wait, base power and toughness equal to total power. Yeah, I was gonna say, for some reason I thought it had combined. Never mind. But yeah, 2 mana to also double target creature's power until end of turn, so we can make something into a 12/12 when we get that token back. Or, potentially if we get board wiped, we still have some pretty big creatures that'll stay on the board. Well, one big creature off of that. Apex onto the creatures, though, that we want to get on the board. We have Apex Altasaur, enters the battlefield, fire to 1 target creature you don't control, and whenever it's dealt damage, fire up to 1 target creature you don't control. So this could potentially be a little bit of a board wipe if your opponents don't have strong enough creatures, because you have it on the battlefield. It fights your opponent's Birds of Paradise. Well, sorry, it fights their Elvish Mystic. It takes the 1 damage, and then it makes the enrage ability happen, allowing it to then fight their Findlehorn Elves, take another damage, allowing it to then fight their Beast Whisperer. You're only at 4 damage, your opponent's taking so much damage. Well, your opponent has taken the damage their creatures have. And then you fight their Birds of Paradise. You get rid of basically all their mana. Beast Whisperer, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. We're not just having creatures enter, we're also plenty of ways to make sure we cast them so we get that draw power to get those into our hand on top of that. Birds of Paradise. Speaking of mana, we need plenty of it, because it's not going to be far and few between that Ojer gets removed. We want to make sure that we keep having ways to keep on casting it, so we keep on dealing that damage. Defiler of Vigor, as an additional cost to cast a permanent, may pay 2 life instead of the green mana, and whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So who says that our creatures need to max out their current power and toughness? Let's make them even more powerful. Let's make it even cheaper to cast our stuff. Let's just pay 2 life for Elvish Mystics or Findlehorn Elves in order to make sure we keep on going for some additional mana in future turns. Elvish Mystic for some mana, Fanatic Veronis for some additional mana. You'll definitely be having a creature power 4 or greater at most times of the game, so having that 4 mana is super nice. You can also eternalize it to have it come back from the graveyard. Findlehorn Elves for some mana. Galta, Primal Hunger, X lets cast, where X is its whole power among creatures you control. Normally it's at least 6, so, 12/12 for 6 with 12/12 with trample for 6 mana. It's not a bad ability, but also being able to cheat this off the top of your deck is an even better ability. Galta, Stampede Tyrant. Whenever he enters the battlefield, put any number of creatures from your hand onto the battlefield. There's a reason we want to start drawing cards. We want to get this onto the battlefield and get as many creatures onto the battlefield as possible. We have some big creatures that have some big casting costs, and let's just get them on the battlefield rather than waiting around. Gorkla, Terror of Kaslem. Creatures with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast, and whenever he attacks, he gets another creature trample and +1/+1 till end of turn, allowing you to make it so your big creatures can actually deal some damage when they don't have that trample, and also allowing you to get your big creatures on the board for even cheaper. Speaking of big creatures, we have Jumbo Cactar. It's only a 1/7, that's all. But whenever this creature attacks, it gets plus 9,999 plus 0 until end of turn. So it's a 10,007. We'll have plenty of ways to double that in this deck. Least which is Skullspore Nexus. And I think we had a second one, didn't we? No, not yet. Alright, so let's do the thing that we love doing in videos, and let's start tracking how powerful we get Jumbo Cactar. So it's at 10,000, doubling it up to 20,000. Kodama, the East Tree. Whenever another permanent you control enters, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, may put a permanent from our hand onto the battlefield. So if we cheat in one creature, may as well cheat in two. Kogla, the Titan Ape. Another creature that we like to cheat in here in order to make sure it could we don't have to spend 7 mana to cast it. Enters battlefield, fights up to one target creature you don't control, removing our opponents. Probably your most powerful thing. Most people don't have things with toughness 7 or greater. That is a big downfall of this deck, I do have to say, is like, what are they called? Baitor. I forgot his title. But yeah, creatures like Baitor and creatures with high toughness do stand in the way of this deck quite a bit. Whenever he attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. And you can also return target human you control to its owner's hand, and gains indestructible to end the turn, allowing him to swing in a little bit easier. Llanowar Elves for some additional mana there. Oran Arsfang, attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. That is one of our ways to get around the big toughness creatures. And also, the way that Death Touch and Trample works is that you only have to deal 1 damage to the creature, and the rest gets dealt to your opponent. And then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That'll be happening plenty of times. Don't worry about it. Sakura Tribe Elder. A little bit of extra mana. We need it. We have as many ways as possible. Well, not as many ways as possible. There's a lot more ways than we have in here. We have quite a few ways in this deck to get that additional mana. Savala, Heart of the Wild. Whenever another creature enters battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. I mean, our opponent's not really going to benefit off that too much, because when we have things that are 12/12s, we're going to tend to have the thing with the strongest toughness. You also pay green mana, add X mana, any combination of colors. We only need green, where X is greatest power among creatures you control. 12 mana for 1 mana, I'd say it's a pretty good deal. Or, 20,000 mana if you have, what's-his-face on the board. Soul of Harvest. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So that also happens off of Ojer's ability there. We like to see it. Sorak and Gorkla, trample. Other creatures you control trample. We want to make sure that our giant Cactar can deal the 20 damage to our opponent. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Also gains haste. We don't want to just leave ourselves sitting around. We want to make sure that it can actually do something the turn they come down. I mean, most things aren't going to, because they're going to be cheated in, and then you're going to have to end the turn because it's at the end of combat. But the creatures that we do cast, we want to make sure we can actually do something with that. Terracida enters battlefield. Sure to retarget 9 creature permanents. For each permanent put into graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token, allowing us to get rid of our opponent's Soul Rings, Arcane Signets. I mean, even if they do have 3/3 swing-ats, we have plenty of stuff to block that. That's fine. And also has Trample on top of and also we could have ways to give a Trample on top of that. Thunderfoot Bailots, as long as you control your commander, +2/+2, and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and Trample. So that's a 7/7 with Trample, making this into an 11/11 with Trample, making this, this already had Trample, but an 8/7. All good abilities there. Topiary Stamper for some additional landfalls that we're going to need. Can attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands, which isn't going to be hard to get to in this deck. Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Another good creature to cheat in. Control deals common damage to player. Draw a card. We're going to be dealing plenty of damage to our opponent, so let's keep on doing it. And then this creature has Trample. If damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage, put +1/+1 counters on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. Also shuffle it back into the library if it gets removed. It's just a really good source of protection there for our big creature. Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 2 mana instead. Like I said, our stuff is pretty expensive to cast, so we want to make sure that we have the mana for it. And also, while we're doing it, we may as well, stop our opponents from getting mana while we're at it. And then Zopandrel, Hunger Dominus, another way to double power and toughness of our creatures. We were at 2020 for our Jumbo Cactar. We're up to 20,000, 20,000. We're up to, well, not 20,000, 20,000. Just 20,000 power. But now we're up to the 40,000 power. Concordant Crossroads, all creatures have haste. Once again, we want to make sure we can swing out our creatures the turns they come in, and not just wait around and wait for our opponents to remove them. Garruk's Uprising, and everybody give our creatures tramples. Like I said, when we have a 40,000 on board, we want to make sure we can deal 40 damage and not just have it blocked by a 1/1. Guardian Project, whenever non-token creature enters the battlefield, not just cast, draw a card. It's commander, so you're not going to have anything with the same name as one another. So you don't need to worry about the rest of the text there. Unless you're playing like, what are they called? The Nazgul, or Heir Apparent, or Tempest Talk. But those are not in green for the most part, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if green has a card like that yet. Kenro Transformation, a way to remove our opponent's stuff without removing their stuff. So we can actually have our creatures trample over it rather than them casting it again. Also a little bit of draw power on top of that. Sylvan Library for some really good draw power. Tribute to the World Tree. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it has power 3 or greater, draw a card. And that's going to be most of our cards. And also if you cast your elves, make them into 3/3s essentially. Unnatural Growth, another way to double power and toughness. We are at 80,000 power for Jumbo Cactar at this point. Up to Beanstalk. Enters the battlefield under your control. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, which, I don't know if you looked at the creatures, but most of them have power 5 or greater, we get to draw a card. And then Wild Growth, for some additional mana. We have a lot of draw power in this deck in order to make sure we get plenty of stuff into our hand, so we can get that one super good turn there with Galta, potentially. For our instance, we have Beast Within for some removal. Enters Restoration, we're going to have power 4 or greater creatures, so we're going to sacrifice 1 land to get 3 lands. Gaia's Gift for some protection, hexproof, indestructible, trample, reach. We don't really have many things to block flying in a deck, but this is a good way to block them. But mostly the protection is what we're looking for. Heroic Intervention for some more protection. Hunter's Insight. Choose target creature you control, deals damage to a player or planeswalker this turn. Draw that many cards. We eventually deck ourselves out, so be careful with that. Legolas, Quick Reflexes, split second, so it can't be countered. Untap target permanent until end of turn. It gains hexproof and reach, and whenever this creature becomes tapped, it deals damage equal to its power up to 1 target creature. So basically attack with any creature and remove something. Also just the protection is really what we're looking for there with that little bit of hexproof. Noxious Revival, put target creature card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. We're going to be cheating stuff off the top of our library, so let's just put it onto the battlefield rather than waiting around for it. What Ojer's building. Return to the Wild Speaker. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Let's draw to 80,000 cards with Jumbo Cactar. We want to do it. We want to see if we can draw the most cards ever in the game. Snakeskin Veil and Tamio Safekeeping, both some more good version. Tyler Stand as well. All good sources of protection there for our creatures. Worldly Tutor, another way to get something that we want out of our deck and onto the top so that we could just get it right on the battlefield. Bridgewater Battle, target creature goes +2/+2, fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Just dealing some damage, getting a little bit of removal. Growing Rites of Urtelmach, Enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a creature card from under them, put it into your hand, rest on the bottom. At the beginning of your end step, you control 4 more creatures, transform it into a land, which could give you green mana for each creature you control, which is much cheaper than, you know, I think it's like $600 card that does it now. Cultivate for some mana. Finale Devastation. Search the library graveyard for a creature card with mana value X or less. Put it onto the battlefield. Another way to cheat some creatures in. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X until and haste until end of turn. Basically, it's going to be the devastation of our opponents. Green Sun Zenith. Another way to search your library, putting your best creature onto the battlefield. Last March it ends. Draw cards equal to greatest toughness among creatures you control. Another good Ursa draw power there. Natural Order. Search the library for a green creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. It comes at the cost of one of your creatures, but let's get rid of our Findle Elves and get our best creature out of our deck. Nature's Lore for some additional mana. Rampant Growth, and revisits do the same thing. Overwhelming Stampede. Until end of turn, creatures you control get trample and +X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So we're at 8,000 with Jumbo Cactar. Wait, no, we're at 80,000. So this puts us at 160,000 damage on Jumbo Cactar. And also all of our creatures get +80,000. And Rich Card's expertise so that we could draw that 160,000 cards, decking ourselves out. But that's the deck profile there. I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you liked the video, make sure you like the video. If you'd like to see more like this, make sure you subscribe and comment how you like to run the deck down there in the comment section. And overall, just hope you have a great rest of the day.